Here I'll be showing you how I play chord melody in the bridge to the song A Man and a Woman. So this is part 3 in this series. I talked about the chord melody for the A sections in part 1, and then in part 2 we went over the chords very closely using vocalese to sing the melody. So here I'm going to show you what I might do to put a melody to the chords in the bridge. And I always want to remind you that I always call my strings from the lowest sounding string. I've got a low G. You don't have to have low G, but I count them this way: the lowest string on the ukulele, and I always count 1, 2, 3, 4, going from the lowest to the highest string. Most teachers describe their chords in the other direction, starting from the highest string going down to the lowest string. I always go from the low string because I grew up in a legit world of music, and we always described all of our chords from the lowest note in the chord so we can understand the voicing of the chord better when we look at it in theory terms. So it's just my habit, but you can certainly describe the chord either way you want to. There's only 4 strings, so I don't think it'll be much of a problem. All right, let's get right into the lesson. Okay, I'll try to explain what I'm doing here in my arrangement. I'm always keeping my eye on the 3 patterns that we use to make the bridge. The first one looks like this, and the second pattern looks like this, and the third pattern like this. Just like we talk about in part 2 of the lesson series here. So I'm always orienting myself around those 3 patterns that make up the bridge. But I'm going to modify them a little bit in some places because I'm playing up here on the neck sometimes, and I might want to form the chord up here instead of down here. Okay, so I start out playing my melody alone, and then I play the first chord in the pattern. The pattern looks like this, right? So I've got my finger on the note, and then I play the first chord of the patterns. I'm striking this melody note again, and then I go to this chord. Beautiful jazz chord. Now what this is just a modification of the second chord in the pattern. Here's the second chord, spelling 2, 3, 3, 3. What I'm going to do is lower this string here. I'm going to move it down and sound back 1 fret, so it's going to go 2, 3, 2, like that, instead of 2, 3, 3. I'm going to finger it this way, 2, 3, 2, and then my little finger still on the melody note up here, and it creates this beautiful jazz chord. I got the name of the chord on screen, but it's not important to know it. All you have to do is remember it's a modification of the second chord in the major jazz pattern here, and you do it by just moving that 1 finger down and putting your little finger up here. And you can use this chord anytime you want. Instead of this chord, the second chord in the jazz pattern, you can always experiment and see if you like this chord in whatever song you're playing as you're going through other songs using the jazz patterns. It's a common modification of this second chord in the pattern. Okay, so again, starting out. And then play the melody alone. And I'm going to play the third chord in the pattern, arpeggiating it like that. Then continuing on, I'm going to play the melody up here instead of down here. I'm going to move it up here because what I want to do is play this chord for the first chord in the pattern. Instead of playing this one, I could go and play the first chord in the pattern like that, or like that. But I like it up here. I just like the sound of that chord. It's just another way to make the C minor 7 instead of, and it's not a chord you would use all the time, but it fits the melody like the sound of it there. So it spells 5, 3, 6, and not playing this string because the melody's on my little finger. And now the second chord of the pattern happens here. That's where it should go, right with that melody, but I'm not going to play it because there's no way to play it. The chord is playing just where I want to play the melody, so I'm going to forget this chord, the second chord in the pattern, and just play the melody. And go to the last chord in the pattern. It's going to look like this. Now, what is that? This, I'm thinking that it's the third chord in the pattern still. It looks like this. But the melody has made it so I've got to put a finger here, which means this finger now is useless because this one has taken its place on that string. So I've got these 3 strings, 3, 2, 3. Instead of being able to play it like that, I'm just going to go 3, 2, 3 and not play this because the melody stops there. Okay, let me go over that one more time. So I go play the modified C minor chord there, and then I don't play a second chord in the pattern, I just play the melody. And it looks like that. Okay, so I'm still thinking major pattern, but I've made these modifications to it. But in my concept, I realize I'm playing this pattern. So that keeps me centered about how I'm keeping oriented to the arrangement as I'm putting it together. And now I'm going to go to this pattern, and let's see what happens there. So I've ended up here, and then the melody is going to strike again, and I should play this E minor 7 chord, first chord in the pattern, but instead I'm going to play it here. Now it's an E minor chord too. It's not exactly the same chord, but I haven't got a 7. If I wanted a 7, I'd put this finger in it, and it would be the equal to this up in its next position, because we've got 4 positions, 4 shapes for every chord as we go up the ukulele, as we use our jazz chords. So instead of playing it here, I'm going to play it here, and I can't play this note on it with the little finger because the melody is where my index finger is. So this is replacing this chord for the first chord in the pattern, spelling 4, 4, 3. And now I play the second chord in the pattern as I normally would here, and then finish the melody, going to the third chord in the pattern as it usually is. Okay, so that part again, start the melody here, playing the E minor chord up here on 4, 4, 3, then play the second chord in the pattern, finish the melody, and play the third chord in the pattern here, and not playing that string because the melody is on this string. And now for the last phrase in the song, so you just go up to fret 5, and here I'm playing the first chord in the pattern. The pattern looks like this, but I can't play this high string because the melody is on my index finger here. So spelling 2, 2, 1. And now instead of this second chord in the pattern, I'm choosing to use this one. It's kind of a trade-off here. It's a G chord, G7. Here it's a G9. Let's just think of it in terms of the pattern, because the pattern looks like this. I can play the same pattern. We've got 4 positions for every major pattern as we go up the neck. I'm just choosing the next pattern up that looks like this, instead of I'm choosing this one. All 4 of these patterns are in the 2 workbooks, of course. I show you how to play each pattern in its 4 positions in workbooks 1. I show 2 patterns in workbook 2. I show the other patterns. So all I'm doing is swapping the patterns there to accommodate the melody and the sound I prefer. I could play the whole thing down here and go play that G7. But I like the sound of it up here. It's just a little more jazzy to my ear. You could play it either way you wanted to. Play it lightly up here. And finish it with this beautiful C major 7 chord. Okay, so that's my arrangement for the song. I hope you can pick it up from what I've showed you. And feel free to make modifications that fit your hand. If you can't do exactly what I'm doing, and see if you can find another creative way that fits your hand and your ability or your creativeness, and modify it to suit. Modify it to suit you. You don't have to do exactly what I'm doing. Maybe if you have trouble doing what I'm doing, use it as sort of a springboard to create your own arrangement that fits you better. I'll finish off here by playing the song down completely one more time with rhythm. I'll add a little rhythm to it, and just a little kind of bossa nova kind of rhythm, so you can see how it would be that way also. It sounds great as a slow song, or you can put a little rhythm to it and see how that sounds. Okay, that wraps up our 3-part series for A Man and a Woman. Beautiful melody. Now you can put this all together and hopefully have some fun working on it and playing it. If you want to know any more about jazz chords and jazz progressions, come on over to the website and take a look at the jazzy workbooks there, where I'm always showing you how to play other songs and how to put the patterns together. All right, till we meet again.